Welcome to our first virtual meetup of the year. We're going to have two, so we're going to see how it goes. So just a few key bits. Obviously, this is our what's coming up. So we've got another online one definitely booked in. So this is on the 18th of July, like a lunchtime one, 12 till 1. So we'll be sharing details of that coming up. There is going to be some in-person ones. Myself and the rest of the committee are all talking about different locations and different times. From recollection, unless anyone wants to jump in, it's going to be after the summer holidays. I didn't think we thought we could get another one in. So it'll be after summer holidays and probably potentially one before symposium. Definitely be one after symposium, of which the dates are there for the symposium. Registration opens in a week's time. So just to raise awareness of that too. This is Peter's talk. I won't go into it too much, although it's very good for him to help us out and do presenting is obviously the one talk today to fill in the hour. But it's obviously on Content Hub, and Peter will explain a lot better than I can of what's coming up. So I'll jump on that in a bit. But the only other admin type stuff is there's our usual details of where to get in touch. We obviously put everything on YouTube and videos there and share things. So if you're going to tweet or do anything, use the hashtag. We're also after speakers. So if anyone wants to jump on the link or the QR code, that goes through to a Google form. So always fill that in, and one of the committee will be in touch. But that's literally my bits of admin. So I'll stop sharing. And I will hand over responsibility to Peter. Make him host.
Thank you, Dominic. So I think I have, yep, I am the host. I'll be able to share my screen. And Dominic, thank you for inviting me at Sitecore User Group UK. This is, I think, definitely my first time. For sure, my first time virtual as well. And what I want to kind of present today is, I think my screen should be showing up for you all. Can you just confirm? Yeah, I think it is. Great. So yeah, what I've been kind of dwelling in this topic for some time now is around agile content workflows, right? So and I think generally adopting an agile approach to content workflows with Sitecore Content Operations is something that I'm quite of an advocate for. And yeah, but just real quick, who I am, I'm Petar Mitev, founder and principal consultant at Mitev Consulting. This is my own independent consulting practice based on over 8 years of experience with Content Hub. I was formerly at Sitecore, did quite a few roles over the years. So I've got that kind of 360 degree from product management to client services to product marketing and Content Hub. Even did a few years in pre-sales. But a bit of personal background on me. I'm actually born and lived in Bulgaria for my 14 years when I moved to Belgium. Lived in Belgium for 23 years, where I also met and married my wife, who's Brazilian, and therefore last year we decided to move to Brazil, end of last year. And yeah, so today we live here in Brazil, close to Sao Paulo, with our 2 children. If you want to get in touch with me, here's my LinkedIn and my email address. Happy to discuss with you all if you have any interesting topics around Content Hub or anything Sitecore. So, well, I wanted to start by kind of highlighting a few interesting content marketing facts I've been kind of researching lately, and it's really this kind of concept of 70% of marketers are actively investing in content marketing. What does this mean? So it really, for me, this reflects that content marketing has and it will continue to have a crucial importance on driving brand awareness, engagement, and all kinds of reaching strategic marketing goals for marketing organizations. And not only that, but 50% of marketers plan to increase their content marketing investments. So it's clearly, for me, showing a trend towards more strategic content initiatives, where executing the right content strategies for your target audiences is key in making these investments worth, right? So just putting more money in our content marketing is not going to make it more effective. I think a streamlined operations and streamlined workflows are key to this. But not only that, but only 31% of B2B content marketers feel that their content marketing efforts are very successful or extremely successful. So 63% of those content marketers attribute their organization's lack of success to challenges in content creation. So I think this is the most key statistic here from kind of my research that I've done. And what I'll try to kind of come to this central theme in my presentation today is that agile content workflows are, to me, in my experience, are key for organizations to become more efficient and adaptive to market dynamics, right? So we live in a hyper-paced digital landscape, and organizations and marketing teams have to become more efficient and adaptive to market changes and ultimately execute an effective omni-channel content strategy. Everyone wants to have an omni-channel content strategy, but the execution of that strategy is key. And I think agile content workflows are the kind of one of those success factors. So, but let's first spend a bit of time looking at traditional and agile content workflows. And so I'm going to present this in a small example here, where we see very high level, our content follows this kind of ideation phase, production phase, and distribution phase. And for other organizations, this might look differently, but in each phase, we have those kind of stages of the content production. Where in a typical workflow, you would go from the ideation stage, where the team starts contributing ideas, starts strategizing on kind of their strategic goals, and defining their content strategy for their campaign. Then the content authoring team starts to draft whether this is a case study, an article, a page on your website, right? So after that first draft is done, we'll go and review the first draft. So maybe this is the content strategist reviewing, and then they would send it afterwards for the editing team to do the kind of the polishing styling, the right style. So the writing edits, kind of looking for typos and so on. And then we'll finally probably send it for preview to the stakeholders to kind of have a look at how it's going to look like on our channel. Typically, could be XM Cloud or a Sitecore website, but it also can be on other devices, right? So afterwards, we'll do a final check before it's published on the channel. But this traditional content workflow is typically following a linear process, right? So the steps to produce content are followed in a fixed linear order, and each phase of is dependent on the completion of the previous one. Typically requires more micromanagement by a project manager or a content manager. There's limited feedback loops. So because the process is linear, it's difficult to incorporate changes and improvements on the content during the workflow. And because of its sequential nature, right? So these traditional workflows often have a longer development and production cycles. And I'm not saying that this is a bad approach. I'm merely saying that this is probably better for larger and more complex campaigns, typically new product launches, marketing events that require several phases that extend over a longer timeline. But, well, let's dive into agile content workflows. So where this illustrative example, I think, reflects more of this kind of agile approach. And the main difference you see here is these feedback loops during the workflow. In the previous example, it was a linear sequential step-by-step process. It didn't give us the opportunity to go back and repeat the cycle of iteration or the development that we were doing at in the specific phase of our production. So, and again, here we'll be, working on the ideation on the strategy of our, for our content. The content author would draft the first draft of the content piece, and it would be sending it for review by the content strategist. But in this more agile workflow, the content strategist can reject it or send it back for rework by the content author, and the content author can send it again for review by the content strategist. And they could have multiple iterations where they're more flexible in the kind of the feedback that they bounce back and forth. And then the strategist might send it afterwards for the editing team to check the style, check the writing style, and for any copy mistakes. So then the editing team would afterwards send it for approval by the stakeholders, who then can send it back for the editing team to kind of do some final touches. So this is sort of kind of what I wanted to illustrate, that these workflows kind of more, there's more emphasis on collaboration, continuous improvement, and the ability to more quickly respond to market demands. A few details to kind of how are they different but from more traditional workflows. So again, it's an iterative cyclical process. Work is broken down into iterations that allow for that continuous feedback, collaboration, and continuous improvements. It evolves typically better with customer needs, right? So there's a little bit more flexibility, I would say. And because of this continuous feedback loops that we can introduce in our workflow, that regular feedback is integrated into our workflow, allowing for consistent refinement and enhancement of our content. And this is typically done with quicker production cycles. So because our workflow is more fast-paced, with more feedback, with more collaboration, we see that this is something more typical for quicker production cycles. And I'll go into this a little bit more in my later slides, but I find this a better approach for individual content pieces, for modular content workflows, as I like to call them as well. So how does this fit into an omnichannel content strategy? So, and this is what I said earlier in my previous slide. These kind of agile content workflows, I find them working better with kind of these individual pieces of content. So, and with the right technology and tools and processes in place, an omnichannel content workflow solution can help organizations managing their content across the organization more efficiently. So this supports a holistic content strategy called across all channels and across all formats. But if I take this example that I'm trying to illustrate here in my slide here, this might be an article or a case study that we want to publish to our website. And it typically could have a hero image. So the hero image is an asset. The article itself has copy, textual content, and it might have quotes. And quotes could be other pieces of reference content. So in a modular content strategy, you want to make sure that your content pieces are reusable across your different formats. So a quote is a great example where you might use the same quote across different case studies or across different articles. But all these different elements combined could create an article on our channel, and they're all following their own kind of workflow. And with if we combine this agile content workflow approach, and creating this kind of omni-channel content strategy with email, with articles, and all kinds of different content types that our organizations manage, we're creating a omni-channel content hub, essentially a holistic hub of where we manage our content, create it, and streamline the end-to-end content lifecycle through it. And we distribute through our different channels where our customers and our audiences are present: website, email, and the mobile apps. So all of these different formats, we're able to orchestrate their life cycle through an omnichannel content hub, and then publish across these different channels. So this is where, so far I've been referring to an omnichannel content hub, and this is where Sitecore Content Hub really comes in, and I think is a very good solution for organizations to, because it's natively integrated digital asset management. It's a natively integrated digital asset management with a content operations solution. So a solution that breaks down the silos of the content and digital asset repository organizations. So instead of keeping them separate into your content management system and your DAM with your digital assets, you have a holistic repository where you're also allowing your teams to create content, collaborate globally, prepare, scale, and distribute content headlessly in multiple formats for any channel. So all from a single application, as I said, because they're natively integrated. And when we talk about Content Hub DAM and Content Hub operations, we typically actually referring to just Sitecore Content Hub because of that native kind of capability that they're interconnected. So what is just a quick overview of Sitecore Content Hub for the ones that know, maybe haven't worked with so much with Sitecore Content before. It's really a 360-degree content hub for all of your content types and formats, and kind of whether this is different asset types, textual or rich media content, is a place where you can manage all that holistically for kind of executing your an omni-channel content strategy. Provides integrated workflows, as I talked about workflows a lot. This is a solution that really is able to orchestrate the end-to-end workflows from creation to distribution for all of your content types. And I think most importantly, it automates manual processes that, and manual processes typically, are prone to human errors. Our different teams might not be aligned on the exact processes that we're following in our organization. And a tool like this allows to streamline, standardize those processes and automate them through these kind of agile workflows, as I talked about. So what is Sitecore Content also is a collaborative content production system, right? So it allows real-time authoring and review for content authors and streamlines content ideation and creation and strategizing for content strategists and anyone that is looking to kind of create campaigns and content and work together into one singular place. It offers multi-channel distribution capabilities. It offers multi-channel distribution capabilities that allow to coordinate content across various platforms and formats, ensuring consistency, brand consistency, and relevance of our content across our different audiences. So kind of, if you're an organization that kind of has this scaled global content operations, Sitecore Content Hub is a great solution which allows to kind of help and supports organizations to orchestrate this kind of well-aligned global content strategy to support a consistent brand presence worldwide, as well as allowing globally spread teams to work together in the same system. And I think last but not least, this kind of headless content delivery, which is one of the biggest differentiators. I'm just saying it last because it's also kind of a technical capability. It's this ability to scale content globally through the delivery network, Content Hub's delivery network, and allowing for consistent content deployments across various platforms so that you separate. And again, it's sort of like a headless CMS use case, but it's much larger than that because you can have a headless CMS use case supported in Content Hub, but it's more beyond that. It's to kind of orchestrate your omni-channel content strategy across multiple platforms through headless content delivery. And one of those use cases is headless CMS, but it's also much more beyond that. And although I realize that I might not have enough time to go into a lot of detail, I do wanted to kind of give a few loose steps, high-level guidelines on implementing these content workflows with Content Hub. And so what I typically do with my clients is really starting with the current state, defining the current process. So would sit down with all the stakeholders and interview them and really explain their end-to-end process, identifying the key stages in their content lifecycle. This could be, drafting, reviewing approvals, identifying which tools that they're using and systems that are involved in this process. So this can be, the typical tools are Microsoft Word, using emails to send feedback, attaching documents in emails. Maybe Microsoft Teams is used sometimes as well to just bounce off some quick feedback. And all these tools, however, however outdated they might be, they're important in the current process. And sometimes it might not make sense to remove them from the future state process, which we'll discuss in a minute. But I think it's important to plot them in the current process and understand, are they causing an inefficiency, or are they just fine and will continue to enhance and streamline the whole content operations of the team that is producing content. Of course, identifying the key stakeholders involved in this process. So who's doing what at what stage? Content authoring team or a specific person is involved and responsible for each stage of that process. And it could be that different key stakeholders are involved in different key stages in an overall content lifecycle for different types of content. Your social media team is involved in everything that relates to social media, or our internal external communications department is involved in the process for everything that is published on our website, case studies, articles, and so on. And identifying what roles that they have in the process. So the different key stakeholders, they all have a role and they have an action to do in that process. They have a responsibility. So it's important to kind of define what that role is and document it. And so ultimately defining the steps and transitions in that workflow of their current state process. Once we have created that kind of picture, as detailed as it may be, at the end, your ultimate goal is to define the future state workflow, how it's going to be, what will their end-to-end content production experience will be when they're using Content Hub, right? So they might be still using some tools like emailing, back and forth feedback, but ultimately, yeah, the idea is that we're going to utilize Content Hub to create efficiencies and create more effective content through a more efficient process, supporting your content strategies. So such a tool is supposed to augment the kind of the execution of the overall content strategy. It's not a tool to define the strategy for them. It's more about the operational kind of aspect of it. So of course we're going to collaborate on the strategy in Content, but ultimately we need to design kind of that future workflow state. So here a few key steps that I've kind of outlined in my typical implementations is, collaborating with stakeholders to define the improved workflow. Understanding their pain points and their challenges in the current process gives you the picture of what that future process improved workflow should be. What is causing the inefficiency? Is it that there's too many manual steps for you to log into a different system and copy paste content over from, let's say, from Word document into Sitecore XP or Sitecore XM? If that's the case, can we integrate it with Content Hub? Content Hub and XM Cloud are integrated. There is a connector that allows you to publish in a streamlined way. You can publish your content that is created and published out of Content Hub into XM Cloud or XM or XP if you're on the legacy DXP. So that's, I think, a key kind of question to discuss with your stakeholders is, Is it going to improve our efficiency? Can we create this kind of end-to-end process through integrations? Or even if there's no integration and if you still need to do kind of copy pasting from one platform to the other, if it's going to improve the efficiency that is currently quite challenging, even if it's not integrated end to end, I think it's still worth to consider, and it's yeah, it's an opportunity for creating a future streamlined process. And so in these kind of discussions, we design the future state, which eventually will become a workflow with Sitecore Content Hub state flows. So this is the kind of the engine that drives all kinds of workflows, types of workflows. This can be content, this can be assets, this can be projects, and so on. So state flows is kind of the key engine that puts our flowchart into reality in as a configured workflow in Content Hub. And then we also need to design the role groups. So we need to kind of define which groups are involved in that workflow, and create them in as a user group policy. Even if they don't contain any specific permissions, we can just use them as container groups to kind of, let's say, okay, this group of users is going to receive the in review step in my workflow, and they're just that containerization of users in groups can be used to drive the workflow assignment strategy. Instead of selecting a list of users one by one, you just pick the specific user group that is should be responsible for the step in the workflow. Prototype, demo, iterate, and then the cycle can continue a few times, which means for me, once this is kind of a clear picture with the stakeholders, early on, start prototyping this workflow. Get a running demo, even if it's very rough on the edges. Get a running demo already in the hands, or show tell and show kind of what the experience will be for those stakeholders in the future, in their future state, and iterate based on the feedback. Right, so early on, the better. And also, of course, stakeholders eventually are going to validate the workflow end to end when they're testing it on their UAT, QA environment, and so on. So I think it's best to get that feedback early on before they even have access to the system for them to validate end to end. By doing this kind of prototype, demo, iterate approach, it will reduce the amount of, feedback and corrections to this workflow, or any adjustments that might be needed later on. So I think that's it from my end. Didn't take up the whole hour, which means lots of time for any questions if there is any. Thank you so much. But yeah, let me take any questions if there's any before I take over. Sorry, give you the host powers again, Dominic.
Yeah, no, it's okay. You don't have to. I believe you can probably see what questions are coming in the chat. I didn't know whether it was like only I can see them or everyone can see them, but Jeremy's posted a question in there. I've got a few as well, so I'll read Jeremy's out. But if anyone else has got any, drop them in the chat and we'll start going through them. So Jeremy's asked, are there any common mistakes you see organizations make when they're trying to be more agile about their content processes?
That's a good one. I think it's the biggest challenge that I see is for organizations that are coming without a standardized process, is to put a process in place. And oftentimes this kind of journey, it comes with maturity, but it also kind of it's challenging to create a process and be agile at the same time when you're coming from a state which doesn't have many standardization processes. So this is kind of a big challenge that I see. Yeah, I
Yeah.
don't know if you want.
It is a tricky one. One of my questions was,
It's a
which you
tricky one.
sort of have linked to that, is about you talked about workflow tips, or like workflows and how they're there. And my experience when I've worked with content teams is workflows are like the barrier to people doing their work. They're not a positive thing; they're a negative thing. So I was going to say, if you had any experience of that, of trying to get them to work in a positive way rather than a natural barrier.
It's always the best thing to do is paint them the picture of how much easier it will be to get the work done, and how much quicker and more efficient you'll be able to get your work done in less time. Um, and yeah, so sort of like, okay, there will be a workflow that you have to follow, but it's gonna give you a much better user experience because you're not gonna be working in a very kind of outdated tool backend content management system. You'll be working in Content Hub, which is a more user-friendly environment for specifically designed for content authors to collaborate and create content, right?
Yeah,
So I think those are kind of the highlighting the benefits that they'll get from using this kind of a tool. Not focusing on the process itself. It's more about the experience that they'll get from the end-to-end content creation to publication is something I think is interesting to highlight.
yeah, no, sounds good.
And yeah, and celebrate successes, right? So once you onboard the users on that new workflow solution, um, kind of, you know, get feedback and record it early on, like sort of as a customer reference, right? Your users of your platform are your customer references internally to market the solution for better adoption.
Yep. Yeah, no, totally agree with that. I think the more you can get like advocacy within the tool, the better, isn't it? And sharing it, because I think a lot of people, it's not just a Sitecore thing, is it? But it's like a lot of people perceive it as it's going to stop me doing my work, because they've found this other little loophole to get through. But actually, it can actually benefit them and make them more effective. No, I like that.
Exactly.
I really liked your point about starting with the content life cycle as a touch base as well, because I think that's not always done. In my experience, it's sort of like we've got the tool, let's get the tool in place, and then we'll figure out what the process is. Whereas it's better going the other way around and going, okay, you know, what do we do now, and how we can make that better?
Yeah, absolutely. And oftentimes organizations, like you said, you oftentimes don't think about that first. So sometimes they're thinking about that content lifecycle for the first time, like actually putting it on paper.
Yeah, I think, like I
But
said,
it really helps for everyone involved, all the stakeholders, to actually, okay, this is now it's documented. And now we're going to follow this sort of standardized way. Yes, it might not allow me to do things the way that I wanted them to, the way I've used to them before. Um, but it will give me a lot of efficiencies.
yeah, definitely, I agree with that. I think again, I think it's logical that sometimes it's tech teams dropping a solution in, and obviously they've got time scales and they've got to get this product up and running, and that's the driver. Whereas really it's sort of like it's flipping it to go, no, what's the process? Because if we get the process right, we'll get better advocacy of the tool, and it might take us a few more weeks to get everything in place, but at least you've got all of the right things in the right order.
Yeah. Yeah. And
um
I feel like, no, go ahead.
no, I was going to say, there were any other questions where, because you talked about authoring and omnichannel right at the start. And I think they're like really important bits to understand. But have you got any like sort of real life examples of where there's been challenges there before implementing a solution?
Yeah, oftentimes is, do we have the integration, right?
Yeah,
So if it's in a typical headless delivery scenario, you just you just your consumer app is feeding the content from Content Hub, from the GraphQL endpoints, which is fine. But in other cases where, let's say, I need my content to flow into a CMS system that is not Sitecore, doesn't have a connector. So then it's a challenge to think about, okay, how will this omnichannel scenario work if we don't have the connector, we don't have the kind of the proper tools in place for us to consume the content from Content Hub. The idea is that Content Hub will be your single place where all your channels consume content, but in reality, it's challenging to be able to integrate with, and I think it's oftentimes, yeah, does the tool allow to easily build this kind of, do they have an open API platform where they can easily build an application layer that is consuming the content, or does it need to be sort of done as a point-to-point integration?
Yeah. Yeah, that's a good suggestion. That. And what anything from the authoring side? Have you bumped into anything of like challenges just from like content authors?
Yeah, I think oftentimes it's the expectation that, yeah, quite a few times the expectation that I'm going to write something in Content Hub and it's going to look, and it's going to, I wanted to see how it looks like in the channel. But there needs to be some sort of a mind shift that you're writing it from an omnichannel perspective. So this thing that you're writing could go on an article on your website, but it could also end up on your, I don't know, on your mobile app. So it could be that this thing is not specific to the channel that you're thinking of, and you cannot really preview it if you don't know where it's going to go to. So especially in the more modular content kind of strategy where your content is separated into atoms. Let's say you have a feature benefit description, and yeah, you cannot preview that feature benefit if you don't know the context.
Yeah.
The context could be your e-commerce website, but it could be your shopping app on mobile. So
For them to be able to see it in the different forms.
yeah,
And that's the way we're living now, isn't it? Is that, like I said, everything's getting reused in different ways. And like it is hard to preview what it actually looks like at the end result. But in one sense, I believe it's gone that far now. It's very hard to ever get to that point, isn't it? Because back in the day, you used to have like labs where you used to have all the different devices, different browsers, and and you could see what your website looked like. But there's so many different choices now. It's like it's very hard to get on top of.
that's right.
And I know it wasn't in your talk, but obviously AI is a big topic when it comes to content. Have you got any thoughts on that and how that might potentially affect Content Hub?
Definitely. I mean, I think Sitecore has big plans with AI, like any other vendor in the DX space. But I think the biggest impact, I think it will be to speed up the kind of content strategy and ideation process. Right now, very soon, I think we'll see from Sitecore, from Content Hub, um, AI embedded, allowing you to quickly, provide a brief, provide a prompt with objectives, a brief campaign strategy, basically, that then quickly generates you a content strategy, 5 different ideas for emails, 3 different ideas for articles, looking at our whole customer lifecycle journey. Perhaps if you integrate with your, CDP, and then that's even, it's going to be an even more richer experience for generative AI to kind of think of your content strategy for your specific goals, for your specific campaign strategy, but also knowing who your customers are from your CDP data.
Stuff, yeah.
So that kind of the
Interesting space.
yeah.
Kate's just dropped another question in. It says, Peter, do you have any case studies about good implementation experience that you could share with us, and any online references will be helpful. So you might not have to, you might not be able to do that right now, but if there is anything to share, I think we'd all welcome it. Is there anything off the top of your mind that come for case studies or?
Case studies. So the challenge with case studies for implementation specifically is that typically case studies talk more about business metrics and business outcomes. They don't talk much about, and if I'm talking about from my Sitecore experience, if I look at the case studies on Sitecore.com, there's quite a, I mean, there's lots of case studies, but they primarily focus on the business outcomes and the gains that those businesses achieve, but they don't go into details of kind of the implementation experience. I think Sitecore partners do that more often, and I've seen a few interesting ones. I couldn't, on the top of my mind, I cannot give any straight away, but yeah, I think partners case studies are interesting ones because of that implementation kind of context that they typically give. So
Cool stuff. And if you think of any or we get any, we'll share them either with the user group as well. I think that is it. If there's any other questions, chuck them in. My only other sort of half joke question is there any other countries you want to live in beginning with B? Because I noticed that every single one was B, 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 but I don't know if there's anyone left.
Bahamas.
Yeah, that'd be good.
Yeah, maybe the next one.
Yeah.
Well, I just moved to Brazil, so I think I'm planning on staying here a bit.
Yeah, for a
Who
while.
knows? Yeah,
No, good stuff.
for
Brilliant.
sure.
Okay, well, we'll end it there. Thank you very much for helping us and coming on and joining and giving us your thoughts. It's been really helpful.
Thank you
I'm
so
sure
much.
you enjoyed it. So thank you very much.
All right, thank
Brilliant.
you.